Hey guys, this is going to be the last video that I post in the Divine Will series that I have made, um, as I'm entering the convent in 6 days. 6 days of me filming this video, but I'll be posting this video later. Anyway, the last video that I want to do in the Divine Will series is to answer a question that I've gotten many times, and it's more of a request. I've had a lot of people request that I would do just share what a day in the life of living in the divine will would look like practically. And so I am going to do that in this one. I think, I just want to say this has been my personal experience, and I want you to understand too, everybody is different, so it's really important to not compare ourselves. But yeah, I think I want to start by saying my opinion on this is that there is a real balance, I think, that needs to be struck between resting in his love and having a structured routine of a prayer life. But that's just in general. That's not just for divine will spirituality. The divine will spirituality is, if you've watched my previous videos, it is a supercharge for the soul. It's an incredible gift, but it is not a free pass to holiness. A soul who is living in the divine will and a soul who wants to live in the deepest depths of the divine will should be behaving like the saints in the way that they live their lives. So if we look at the examples of the saints, we can see that they lived life with great purpose, meaning that they practically devoted much of their time and energy to prayer. They fasted, they did penance, they were incredibly generous with their time and talents, they weren't greedy. They didn't waste time on superfluous things in order to satisfy their own comforts. I recently watched a YouTube video about just the biography of the soon-to-be Saint Carlo Acutis, the way that he lived his life. I would highly encourage you looking into a day in the life of Carlo Acutis, looking at the videos that are up about what his life was like, how he lived his life, because it's really the choices he made in everyday life were what made him the saint that he was. And I think he's very inspiring, in particular because he's young, he's modern, he's living in our society, he worked with computers, so yeah, I'd highly encourage you to look to him for inspiration and pray to him for help to be a saint in these modern times. So I think when I share what a day in the life is like of someone who is living in the divine will or wanting to live in the divine will, I think it's really, I can answer the same question basically by saying what is a day in the life like of someone who is striving to be a saint. I will share personally that just in general, it helped me a lot when I started structuring my days out, specifically planning them out. Writing down the night before or even the weeks before what my agenda was, the time frame, the things that I was going to do during that time. It is true of any profession or craft that achieving a level of excellence doesn't just happen overnight or by wanting it. Even if someone has a certain amount of natural talent, it is necessary that they work hard on that talent and refine it if they ever want to be a professional. This was something I learned when I wanted to be a performer. I learned this as a teenager. Everyone who had ever made it on Broadway had one thing in common. They worked very hard. They were very focused, utterly focused on that one goal alone. They gave this goal absolutely everything they had, and they did not waste time on other things. Many of these people who made it on Broadway had a daily and weekly routine that revolved around refining their skills and achieving their goals, and they stuck to that discipline even when it hurt. Like I said, when I was a teenager, I learned a lot. I learned a lot from TED Talks on success. And that sounds corny, and I'm certainly not saying that every TED Talk is great or endorsing TED Talks in general. There's, propaganda on there. But there are a lot of really good things out there. For me, I remember I saw a TED Talk about grit. I think the title of it was just grit, like how to be successful. And that really inspired me. When I decided that I wanted to be a professional ballet dancer, when I was like 14 years old, even though I was not very talented, I made a schedule for myself for each day so that I could be really efficient and intentional with my time. Many days I would get up at 5 a.m. so that I could do a stretching and strengthening routine that targeted my weak points before my day would even begin. This is another thing too. I think this is just another thing I learned from TED Talks. I always made my bed every morning. I always kept my room clean because it helped me to think clearly. And it's just a really good way to start out the day. The little things really matter. Having a clean space, I think, really matters. But you have to be intentional about doing that. You have to build habits to keep that space clean. You have to, write it into your schedule, until it becomes a habit. So yeah, this became a part of my daily/weekly schedule, like cleaning up my spaces, keeping it tidy. So yeah, I would schedule out my days the night before, and I would push myself within this schedule. I would push myself because I really wanted to achieve my goal of being a good dancer. This was everything to me. This was the most important thing, and so every day would vary. Every day that I would schedule the night before would vary depending on the particular things that I had to do. But I would always find a way to actually schedule in the most important things that I needed to do in order to achieve my goals and to strengthen my weakest points. And I would stick to this. And there was no space for being lazy. You got to schedule in leisure time. That is important, but this was something I learned. Another thing I learned from ballet was keeping a notebook that I would write in after every ballet class of all the corrections that the teacher would give me, the things that I needed to work on and also the things that I was doing well in. And I would read through these corrections before my next class so that I could be really intentional on not making the same mistakes again and actually growing in my weak points, or doing the things again that I was doing well in. I continued this scheduling of my days all the way through college when my goals shifted from ballet to music and acting. Honestly, I would surprise myself at how fast I was able to grow, because I really wasn't very naturally talented. I didn't feel like, especially compared to everybody else, but because I made this really intentional, focused plan and I just did it, I wasn't discouraged by where I was. I just decided I wasn't going to be there anymore. And so I was going to work as hard as I could at this. I was actually able to overcome these weaknesses, and I was able to gain a lot of strength, a lot of vocal strength, and it was really encouraging. And that was how I learned that we're capable of a lot more than we think we are. We just need to be really intentional, and focused, and not be all distracted with what our goals are. Yeah, it was really because I wanted to be good at dance, good at singing, good at acting, that I actually made this routine and stuck to it. My desires were a fuel, they were a fire in me to keep it going when I would have rather quit, when I was really tired. Because of my huge dreams and desires, I actually had the motivation to stick to that routine in my day, even when I would have rather slept in. And that's why I think, when it comes to anything, really, and one of those things being holiness, being the spiritual life, being the gift of living in the divine will, it is all about the desire. The extent of your desire is the most important thing, because if you really, 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 really want it, to a fever pitch, then that fire in you is going to be fine-tuned, a direct path leading only to that one goal that you have a fiery burning desire for, and you are going to do everything you can to reach that goal. And if you are smart and you tailor your days and make a schedule and a routine around a strategy to attain that goal, then you're going to easily have the fire to stick to that simple schedule that you make for yourself. And you're really gonna, at that point, if you do those two things, if you have that fiery desire and you are smart about fine-tuning that fire right where it's supposed to go, then you are going to be unstoppable. You gotta have heart and head. And so for me, whenever I had that turning point moment, when I was 20 years old when it happened, that I decided that my new goal, my new ultimate focus, was no longer being excellent at singing, dancing, and acting, but now my number one goal was loving Jesus as much as I can, and becoming holy, becoming a saint. For me, once I made that shift of goal, that was really the only thing that changed for me, was the shift of where I was looking, because I had all of this. I carried over the same tools, the same way that I was living my life when I was working for these goals, over to this new goal, this different goal. I just kind of naturally would, as I would read the lives of the saints, and would read and listen to different homilies. I listened to a lot of homilies. One of them, I would recommend the YouTube channel Sensus Fidelium in listening if you want concrete ways of how to grow in the virtues, in the spiritual life, the basics. They would inspire me a lot, and I would learn a lot about the things that were really, really important. And some of those things were, I'm just gonna kind of list them out. Praying the rosary is super, super, super important. And specifically, if you're ambitious, and I was certainly the ambitious type. I saw that if you pray all 4 mysteries of the rosary every day, that is a supercharge that will get you very, very, very far. And so that's what I decided to start doing at that point in my life. And I would schedule it into my days. I would actually, and a lot of times the only way that I could really do that was, it was first thing when I wake up in the morning, put in headphones, listen to a YouTube version of the rosary. And then on my walk to campus, pray another rosary. And then on my walk back, pray another rosary. And then another rosary before bed. Stuff like that. I would find a way to pray the rosary, all 4 mysteries of the rosary, every single day, even in the midst of being a college student, on top of having a job, on top of having social obligations, on top of having a show that I was in that I had to rehearse for and memorize my lines. I would find ways to sneak it in. You don't have to be a religious nun or living on your own to do this. You can have a busy family life, you can have the full-time job, there are ways to do this. Anyway, I'm rambling so much. That was one of the things. The rosary is really, really important. All 4 mysteries if you can. And so that's what I started doing. And another thing was adoration and mass. And I decided that I wanted to start going to adoration every single day, to have a holy hour every single day that I possibly could. Of course, there were exceptions that had to be made sometimes, but for the most part, I started going to adoration every single day. Just sitting and being with Jesus, I made it happen, and I also made daily mass happen as often as I possibly could. I prayed pretty hard. That at a certain point, I prayed pretty hard when my work schedule was about to change, that my work schedule would still allow me to get to mass before work and before college classes and stuff, and he answered that prayer, because he will find a way. If you want to go to mass, he'll find a way to get you to go to mass. Those two things, daily adoration and daily mass, really, really, really helped me. But in particular, another YouTube video that I watched, I'm full of watching self-help things. Another YouTube video that I watched, just explained the importance of really, really, really taking the time after you receive communion, to soak it in, to really, really recognize that Jesus is actually really, really in you, and to not just rush out the door immediately. Of course, if you have to get to work or something, that's different. but still, even when you are in the midst of driving in your car, be silent and recognize Jesus is in you, instead of just immediately breaking to like go talk. So I would sit and I would linger after Mass, because Jesus was inside of me, and I would stay there for as long as I could possibly before I had to get moving for my next thing. And honestly, like, I'm mentioning this because I think it is one of the most important things that I ever started doing. Like, one of the most important habits that literally changed my entire life was just staying for 15 minutes or more after Mass to commune with Jesus, who was truly present inside me. Because the Catechism says that the Eucharistic species remains fully Jesus for about 15 minutes after being in the person, until the digestive process dissolves the matter of Jesus, right? The bread that he's under the appearance of, until it is no longer that anymore. And so Jesus is really truly present inside you, body, blood, soul, and divinity, for 15 minutes. Don't ignore him. Like, give him everything. I would sometimes, like, I don't know. I think it's a good idea to like put your hands like on your neck as you're swallowing him. Like, follow him, hold him, hug him, remind yourself, and give him the assurance that you're there and you're thinking of him and you're embracing him and you're happy that he's there. Don't just look around. Don't be think as much as you possibly can. Don't be thinking about other things unless you want to bring him into that conversation of thinking about other things. But just be attentive. Be super, 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 super attentive to him as you can possibly be. And then when you leave the church, try to maintain that attention as much as you possibly can. Like, be super, super vigilant with yourself to keep that attention on him. I think that's super, super, super important. And I'm only sharing it because I think it's incredibly important for anybody who's wanting to grow in the spiritual life. Okay, so I listed 4 rosaries a day. As you can fit them in, and be smart about fitting them in. You don't need to sit and set light candles and have a nice quiet time to pray all that, no. But you can find ways to do it in the transition moments throughout your day, at the very least. Daily holy hour, if you possibly can, and try to spend this time just being in his presence. Try not to do busy work. Try to just commune with him. And daily Mass, if you possibly can, and super, super, super intentional about focusing on Jesus' true presence in the Eucharist and inviting him to live his real life in you. Like, every communion is only as fruitful as we make it, right? Jesus could actually make us all saints in one single communion if we are perfectly disposed to receive him, meaning that we are in a state of grace, and we empty all our distractions, and we really, really are open, and we get our wills out of the way, and we tell him and give him full permission to change our wills, to change our hearts. If we really, really give him full permission to do anything he wants, and we're all intent on him, and you go to daily Mass every day for a week, easily you'll be a saint, immediately. That's how powerful the Eucharist is, but people don't realize that. So take advantage of that, and don't waste your communion. Don't waste your Sunday communion with not being attentive to him. Okay, so the next thing, yeah, Our Lady of Fatima asked the children of Fatima to pray the Rosary and to sacrifice for sinners who were falling into hell. And this really inspired me, and it made me, I don't know, God gave me a grace to be, at a certain point, to be really, really, it was kind of an existential moment, just thinking about eternal things, the eternal nature of hell, and just meditating on what that would be like, and it just really, really was, and even just meditating on purgatory as well, how awful that would be, how, I don't want to go there, I don't want anyone to go there, I don't want anyone to go anywhere except straight to heaven. That kind of became a driving motivation force in me. And yeah, I believe that's a grace that he will give anybody who's open to receiving it. Just seeing things the way they are, seeing reality. It's like the red pill of things. So these eternal things became the most important thing ever. The literal only important thing ever. Who cares if I can hit a high C, you know? Souls are falling into hell like snowflakes. Nothing matters except that, right? Anyway, Our Lady of Fatima asked the children to make sacrifices for sinners. And so I believe Our Lady of Medjugorje asks for fasting on Wednesdays and Fridays. It's particularly bread and water, but also you can do intermittent fasting. You can do, there's different versions of fasting that you can do. And so that I ended up making that a part of my weekly routine. It was a part of my rule of life. And that was a term that I learned from a Sensus Fidelium homily, that YouTube channel I was talking about, that stresses the importance of a rule of life, to have a rhythm of prayers that you do every day, and a rhythm of like how activities that you do like throughout your week, and things that you refrain from, penances you do, things you renounce at certain periods, in order to grow in holiness. Or if you actually want to grow in holiness faster, you don't think about the growing in holiness part, and you just think about for the salvation of souls, right? And so, okay, this became a part of my weekly routine was fasting, and I am sharing this because I think it's extremely important for anybody who wants to grow in the spiritual life. And of course, not everybody can fast medically, although humans are quick to make excuses for ourselves, and we will say, oh, I can't fast, it makes me feel dizzy or weak. Make sure you're not making excuses. Make sure you're not making excuses for yourself unless you seriously have a real medical reason why you cannot fast, because fasting is actually really healthy for people. It's a misconception that fasting is unhealthy. Studies have shown that people who do intermittent fasting, not even just for religious purpose, but people who do intermittent fasting a couple days a week or so, they live longer, they're healthier, they're more flourishing. So anyway, I would highly recommend fasting on Fridays and or Wednesdays and Fridays if you can, or if you choose to do so. And honestly, it depends on how fast you want to grow. For me personally, another YouTube channel I want to recommend is called Gabby After Hours. Gabby After Hours, if you're not aware of him, he is the TED Talk guru of the Catholic world. He's like a Catholic TED Talk, his whole YouTube channel, and it's really cool. Honestly, his YouTube channel changed my entire life. I say that about a lot of YouTube channels, but I'm serious. He did. It really changed my life. It was super inspiring. And if you follow the advice in his YouTube channel wholeheartedly, I think any of us would become saints, because it's very simple. And it's what Mary has asked us to do. The things that he promotes. Anyway, when he was sharing on his channel about how he did fasting, he talked about intermittent fasting. And that was the kind of fasting that I started doing, which is basically where you can do it in different ways, but it's basically where you just go like a certain number of hours without eating. I found that it worked actually really well for my body to skip breakfast and lunch on these fasting days and just only eat dinner. But it's like when I ate dinner, I kind of just ate until I felt satisfied. And so it really wasn't that hard. You go a long time feeling like hungry, but you're offering it for the salvation of souls, right? And in the process, God is able to purify you of your human will, purify you of your tendencies and passions and your inclinations to sin at a really exponential rate when you are fasting regularly than if you weren't. Because when you deny yourself, it's one of those practices. It's like when you're focused on being a good athlete, being a good ballet dancer, like you gotta do the uncomfortable things regularly in order to achieve that. It's the same thing in the spiritual life. If you're focused on being a saint, you gotta do the uncomfortable things regularly at a regimented time, like in order to be purged of your selfish tendencies, be purged of your human will and of all of the inordinate passions. The thing that happens with fasting, and it's really recommended for if anybody is struggling with sin, especially sin of the flesh, it's recommended that fasting is like the most important thing to combat that. It's because you are working the exact same muscle that you need to build to a certain degree of strength to deny yourself, to deny your bodily desires, your bodily desire for food. And it's the same thing with, like, yeah, not only just sins of the flesh, but also any sins at all. You are denying the inclination that you have, the fever, the passion that you have to lash out, the passion that you have to want to steal the spotlight and be the best, and the passion that you have to have the most knowledge about anything and to be prideful over anybody, like, and to assert your opinion and to gossip and talk bad about people. Like, you if you are fasting regularly, then you will build the strength, the spiritual strength that you need to actually deny yourself when it comes to matters of sin, and especially, and also not only sin, but when it comes to matters of when you're faced with something that you have to do that's really, really courageous. When God is calling you to do something that requires courage, that requires self-denial, if you are someone who fasts regularly and you are used to simply telling yourself no over and over and over again, it may not seem like that'll do a lot, but it actually does a lot. And it's not the us that are doing it. It's us. By doing this practice of fasting, we are making the space for God to put so much grace into us and to radically transform our hearts. We do a tiny little bit, and God is not outdone in generosity. He goes crazy and overflowing. He multiplies everything we ever give him. And so, yeah, if you really, really want to live in the divine will, if you really, really want to be a saint, if you really want to live in the deepest depths of the divine will, yeah, you should have a fasting. You should have fasting as part of your weekly routine. Yeah, perhaps even this. Yeah, this is gonna sound crazy, maybe too hard, but I'm telling you, it's not too hard. If you really, if achieving this goal is your only goal, then making a structured regimen of cutting these things out could be really good for you. You could cut out putting salt on your food every single day of the week, except for Sundays and special feast days, and maybe a birthday. You could cut out sweets and candy and alcohol and putting extra sugars and creams into your coffee, into your tea, putting honey and drizzling it over your oatmeal, putting cinnamon over your oatmeal. You could cut out all of these things on every day of the week to offer for a sacrifice, except for on Sundays and feast days, if you wanted to. And that's also something I'm speaking to those who are truly medically unable to fast. You don't need candy. You really, really don't. You don't need sugar. You don't need spices in your food. You don't need anything exciting. We are in the middle of the world is on fire. I'm just saying, the world is on fire. The church is on fire. Penance, sacrifice is needed in these times, and so we should be soldiers, jumping into the battle right now by doing little things like not putting salt on your avocado toast with great love. Alright, so those are some practical things that you can and should work into your daily and weekly routine, if you really want to live in the deepest depths of the divine will, if you really want to be a saint. These are the things that saints do. But it's not only about doing, it's certainly not about checking off boxes, because lots of people could just do all of these things without allowing the practices to transform the heart. And this is kind of getting back to what I was saying at the beginning of this video. Like, there's a real balance between, and these things, they shouldn't conflict, but they should go together. This resting in Jesus, this living in the divine will, this being a saint, it really is all about the heart, but there needs to be a certain structure as well, and mostly, like, that structure, it should be there because we really need that structure in order to grow in the heart, if that makes sense. In some of my earlier videos about the divine will, I talked about just kind of like the progression of growth when a soul is approaching the divine will to after the point when they receive the gift. There's deeper and deeper like levels of growing, and a lot of the signs that should accompany that growth is growth in the virtues, is overcoming of vice, is disappearing of deliberate sin in the soul's life, and even unintentional sin will get smaller and smaller and smaller and less and less frequent the more that we grow. And I think it could be really, really beneficial to actually research what are the vices, what are the virtues, because a lot of people have misconceptions and misunderstandings about what virtues are, about, for example, what humility is. A lot of people think that humility is just remaining quiet and thinking little and low of yourself, and like you're the worst thing ever and you don't have any talents or skills. But actually that's not humility, that's kind of pride / false humility. Humility is simply recognizing who you are and who God is, recognizing your nothingness, your total dependence on God, and the fact that Jesus has forgiven you of eternal infinite sins that you've committed against him through his death on the cross for you. That is humility. Humility is also recognizing the incredible gifts and graces and talents that God has given to you. And yeah, there's also like vices you can learn about, and I learned about a lot of these, like I said, listening to that self-help Catholic YouTube channel, Sensus Fidelium, about the virtues, about the harm that over chattiness does to a soul, the harm that like indulging your senses in watching TV a lot does for your soul, like, and the necessity for mortification, not just of your flesh in the sense of fasting, but the need for mortification in not getting on social media, mortifying your thoughts, mortifying what your brain is doing, so that you're not always thinking about the entertainment, thinking about the news, that addiction that you have to your cell phone, checking, looking at things like, but refocusing that mortification, that curiosity that you might have, refocusing that to God, right? These, I don't know, I honestly, I'm not equipped to give a talk on all of these things. I'm just kind of throwing out random examples that are coming to the top of my head, but yeah, I would really recommend you really, and are wonderful resources out there. Research the vices, research the virtues, research your predominant fault. I'm going to bring up this chart that a good friend of mine made about the predominant faults and the corresponding virtues that are needed to overcome them. So all of us we're all born with original sin. We all have faults, tendencies that we are born with, to certain sins, to certain imperfections, and but we're all unique too in the way that we're built. We all have a certain predominant fault. So like we have one that is like the one that we struggle with the most. There are 3 predominant faults: pride, vanity, and lust. And the sins fall into different categories. And so I'm bringing up this chart because it can be, after you research, if you don't know what these things are, I highly suggest that you find what these things are. So if you don't know what these things are, go on the internet, find a good Catholic explanation for what is pride, what is anger, what is the sin of lust, the sin of envy, the sin of gluttony, avarice, and sloth. And go online and also find what really is humility. What does meekness mean? What is chastity? What is the virtue of charity? What is the virtue of temperance? What is the virtue of generosity? What is the virtue of diligence? And after you find out what these things are and come to a place where you understand them, then you can pray with Jesus about, in what ways do you struggle with each of these 7 deadly sins? And then making a game plan of like what are specific ways in my everyday life, practically, that I can overcome my vices by practicing the opposing virtue, and then paying special attention to that predominant fault. these, yeah, this video is probably not what people were expecting when they asked for what is a day in the life of living in the divine will. But I don't know. I think, if you want my opinion, I think this background work is extremely important, because if it's not done, then it's not done. And you can't really truly be free. And of course everyone is on their own path, and Jesus can like work and purify, and he can do all kinds of things in everybody. But I really do think there is something to, if you want to get ahead of the game, be really, really intentional about these things. Be really intentional about making your rule of life, tailoring your goal to that one thing, to that holiness, to that living in the deepest depths of the divine will, and loving Jesus and saving as many souls as you possibly can. Then that's just the best way to do it. It's the most efficient way to do it. So yeah, I would say, what does a day in the life of living in the divine will look like? I would say that there should be a rule of life. We should make a rule of life for ourselves that includes all of the things that I mentioned, if at all possible. And yeah, we should have things like reading the Book of Heaven as a part of that rule of life. We should make time to pray the rounds. We should make time schedule in time to pray the rounds, schedule in time to pray the hours of the Passion. Yeah, I think these are pretty basic things. And like I said also, like at the beginning, it is not about the doing of the thing, checking off boxes. Oh, I prayed the hours of the Passion, and then I did the rounds, and then I read 4 passages from the Book of Heaven, and so now I should be good. No, it's not about the amount of thing you do. It's about the quality. But I think having that regimented schedule too helps with the quality, if that makes sense. It's difficult to be disciplined. It's difficult to do what you need to do in order to grow in the divine will and to really live in the deepest depths of the divine will. So I think just biting the bullet and making a schedule for yourself that you could stick to is the surest and fastest way to do it. And maybe you're a parent and you have a lot of kids, and it's hard to find time to do these things that I was talking about. Maybe it's not possible to get to daily mass. If it's really not possible for your schedule, that's okay. Like, Jesus understands. Do whatever is possible, though. He knows what you can do. He knows what, he knows like how dependent people are upon you, and he knows the duties of your state in life. The duties of your state in life are the most important of anything. You shouldn't be failing. If you're a college student trying to do this, you shouldn't be failing in your studies because you're trying to do all these things. Like, you should be able to do both. So, and yeah, even more important, if you are a parent and you're caring for kids, like, you should be there for your kids. This shouldn't be like pushing them out of your life. You should actually grow deeper and deeper in love with them, and they should feel more loved by you with this change that you are introducing in your life, because it should cause the effect of doing all these prayers, of having this regimen, of doing this fasting and self-denial, should be that Jesus becomes vibrantly alive in you, and is able to love deeply everybody around you. And so that's another thing you have to be intentional about loving constantly in the present moment, being attentive to the person in front of you, being attentive to giving them the love of Jesus. And it might be hard to find time to read the Book of Heaven and to pray the rounds when you are a parent with young children, but you know what? Your young children, they're probably not awake at 4 a.m. Yes, I did say 4 a.m. How bad do you want this? If you have that fiery desire that's strong enough, then you will be up at 4 a.m, reading the Book of Heaven, praying the Rosary, praying the rounds, praying with the hours of the Passion, possibly getting to Eucharistic adoration, if you can. If you can't, it's okay. Yeah, I think these things are important, and I think I'm going to say, though, I'm going to save the most important thing for last. And it's that, basically, a day in the life living in the divine will. It's totally ordinary. There's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just exactly the same as any other day. You don't have to need to do anything extra at all to live in the divine will. Because it is. It's all about the heart. And the thing is like, the more when your heart has been fully transformed, then you don't really need the structure anymore. And you still do abide by a structure, but it's like you get to a place of growing where it's just fluid and you just love. From the start of your day to the end of the day, and even as you sleep, you're just loving. Talk to God as much as you can. There's little habits that you should build, and He will give you lots and lots and lots of grace. Like, all this talk, it sounds like I'm saying a lot of you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do that, and it's your own strength. And really, that's just like, we do the 0.00001% of the work when we're doing all of these things in the regimen, and then God does all the rest of it, and He propels us. But yeah, really, it is just about love. Like, you can be living in the divine will. You don't technically need to be thinking about doing the rounds intellectually, I don't think, in order to actually do them, because Jesus does them with you, and it's fluid, and He does them for you, and you are supposed to, I think it's important to, when you do your prayers, you should continue that attitude throughout the whole day. So most especially like with the rounds, like if you pray your rounds, say at the very, very beginning of the day, 4 o'clock in the morning, before the kids get up, then you can have that attitude of entering into all created things, that I love you, Father, everything is love, everything is love, everything is love, and you'll carry that throughout the rest of the day. And so when somebody does something that is not nice to you that day, then you'll be in this headspace that is not thinking about the physical, but you're still in that space that you were in earlier when you got up at 4 a.m. to pray, and where you were fusing in the divine will with Jesus in His passion, and when He was trampled and stomped upon by the soldiers, and you were comforting Him, and you were fusing with Him, and you were loving Him and consoling Him in that. And so then, kind of naturally, like, when these things happen to you, little things, really, you need to fight to maintain that focus throughout the whole day of, you are living, Jesus is living His life in you. You are a living host. Your life is about what your life is about, which is the divine will. And to the extent I think that you truly make the paradigm shift that this is the most important thing in your life, and this is really your only goal, then the more powerfully it will be expressed throughout your day, and the more effortless really it will be to you, even though you are making a lot of effort, because it's your desire. It's like, because though the desire is so strong, you don't really notice that you're making that much effort, because it's just kind of what you want to do, right? Yeah. So pray that Jesus would increase your desire. Can't stress that enough. And just ask for the grace to make a daily rule of life. Ask the Holy Spirit to guide you in making your rule of life one that is appropriate for you and for your family. Yeah. I would say, like, in general, unless like it's to love somebody else in your life, watching TV for entertainment, it's really not necessary. It should be limited. We should limit these things a lot, if not totally and completely. And I mean, it is different if you have somebody you're living with that like wants to watch these things and you want to watch with them so that you can love them. I'm just throwing it out there. Like, we can clear out all the unnecessary clutter in our life, in our daily routine, and make everything focused around God as much as we possibly can. And then the things that are not intentionally, like using my brain to focus on God, like, they're focused on God too, because you're spending time doing your duties of your state in life. You're loving the people around you. and that is God, and you will see God because your focus is on him so much and you want to be with him all the time. Then you will just begin to naturally see him always and everywhere, and you will realize that your whole entire life is nothing but one big prayer, and your whole entire life is nothing but living in the divine will. But I think the boundaries, building the structure, the building blocks, the rule of life is kind of necessary. And then the rest of it, all the stuff in between, if that makes sense, day to day, week to week, kind of fills itself in naturally. And so everything is God. I think that's just about all that I want to say, except I do also want to say and emphasize, overemphasize that the gift of living in the divine will, the invitation to be a great, great saint, is absolutely for every single person in the whole entire world. Anybody can do this if they want it. If you have the desire, then God is calling you to it. It doesn't matter how imperfect you see yourself. Maybe you're not good at being disciplined and having a schedule, and this whole thing is making you feel like you need to throw up. I don't know. Okay, if this whole thing is making you feel like you need to throw up, then maybe God has a different route for you if you get anxious and in your head about things. I'm sharing something that was really good for me, and in general, I think it's a good thing to do. I think a lot of the saints did it, but yeah, every saint is different. We all have our own unique path. The most important thing is just understanding that this gift of the divine will is for you. Like, just as you are right now, God will meet you and bring you to the place you need to be, to not only live in the divine will, but in the deepest depths of the divine will. And ultimately what that will look like is flourishing and blossoming into the most you that you could possibly be. That the you that God designed from all of eternity, you'll be very unique. Everything about your life will be infinitely unique because there is only one you. And yeah, this gift is for you. Don't be discouraged by anything you hear anybody say. Don't be discouraged by anything you hear me say. If this seems like it's too hard, like it's too high of a call, Jesus does emphasize how high this call is, how beautiful and incredible and amazing it is. But another thing he emphasizes is how absolutely nothing is needed but our littleness and our desire. He doesn't need you to be perfect. He doesn't need you to be good at schedules. He just needs your whole heart. He needs your everything. He needs your desires, all intent on him. And he will make you a great, great saint. So yeah, be incredibly encouraged. And I want to end this video, that is my last video in the Divine Will series, in a similar way that Jesus ends the Book of Heaven. The last thing he ever dictated to Louisa was all about Mary, the Blessed Mother, the Queen of the Divine Will. She will help you. Go to her. She will help you along the path, sip by sip, little by little, just like a mother to her little child. It fills her heart with so much joy that you are interested in the divine will at all. And you might think that it's not that big a deal, that, you know, Mary and Jesus and all the saints, they're not that excited that I'm interested in the divine will because I'm just kind of the worst and I'm not good at anything and blah, 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 blah. And what I would say to that is that you sound a lot like Luisa Picaretta, the firstborn daughter of the divine will. Like, we don't need to be anything special. We don't need to be anything good, because the truth is, literally none of us have anything good to offer on our own. The only thing we can do is be little and allow God to carry us. Any saint you see out there, Luisa Picaretta, any soul who's living the divine will, they're not able to do anything on their own. They're little and they know it, and they're relying on their parents to help them. And yeah, Mama Mary is the mother and queen of the divine will. She is your mother, and she wants you to be intimate and close with her, to not be afraid, to not think that she's too far and far away from you because she's pure and she's immaculate, and yeah, she is. She's awesome. She's incredible. But she, more than queen, she is a mother. She is more mother than she is queen, and she actually wants to be intimate with you. She wants to hold you. She wants to live common life with you like a mother does with her little tiny child, and she actually delights in you a lot. She's not disappointed in you, neither is God the Father. Actually understand, I think this is probably the best way that you could possibly grow in sanctity, possibly grow in the divine will, is to understand just how Mary and Jesus are looking at you. They're looking at you, and they're really barely seeing your faults at all. They're seeing, and they're focused on the desire that you have to live in the divine will. Like, if you have a desire to live in the divine will, I don't think you understand how happy that makes them. And if you were to stop and think about it, and you were to ask them how that makes them feel, that you're actually wanting to live in the divine will, then you would actually be extremely, extremely encouraged, because you would realize that they're looking at you like their prized possession. You are like their prized possession. And the thing about God is that he loves one soul as much as he loves every single soul put together. Yeah, I used to think that I wasn't that important to God. Like, well, Mary and all the other saints, like, they're loved more than I am because I'm the worst. Like, I'm not doing as much as they are. I'm not as good as they are. I don't love God as much as they do. But I came to realize that actually with God, it's a paradigm shift, and it's hard for us little tiny human brains to understand it. But actually, God loves every single soul as if they were the only soul that existed. And he loves every single soul as much as he loves all souls put together. Okay, think about that. It's incredible. You're everything. You're it. And you have the most encouraging, and the person that sees the most good in you possible. Like, God is more proud of you, probably, I'm assuming. Like, even if you just have the desire to live in the divine will, if you have the desire to not sin, like, even if you are still struggling, like, God is so proud of you, and you don't even understand that. He wants to heal you. He wants to bring you to a place of deeper and deeper freedom and greater, like, sanctity. But be so encouraged that you don't have somebody... the entire celestial court is not disappointed in you if you are striving and if you are desirous. Actually, the entire celestial court is enamored by you. You are a dazzling light for them, and they see in you the potential to be a great soldier of light, just with your simple little desire. So be encouraged, just exactly who you are. God is pleased with you if you just want to love him.
I don't have a thing to give you. I just have my heart. I don't have a thing to offer. I just have my nothing. I don't have a thing to give you. I just have my heart. I don't have a thing to offer. I just have this empty space. Let my void be present.